Well, we got the first of the flex. Come on, Davidoff, what's up with that? Did I do that? We'll let that go. Small cigar. 3.5 inch, right? What's the gauge? Does it even matter if that's... What are we talking about? Is this a 46? It's not a 44. Is it a 48? I'll look it up. If I had to guess, 46. If I had to guess. It's a small stick. It is what it is. But nice little full pack. I've had this cigar before at the what do you call it? Best Cigar Pub in Drums, Pennsylvania. And look, I mean, not just because it's just going to be more affordable for the Davidoff, although it's not going to be cheap per se. I think I was paying like $14 in PA for this cigar the size. Now that seems cheap for a Davidoff, but then again, look at the size. But if you're in New York, you're going to spend over $20. It is what it is. It's very well made, but in the day, for most people, Davidoff's not worth it. What I mean is, it's an elitist brand. It's an expensive brand. Is it worth the money? Generally, probably not. However, though, is it worth the flavor? Could be. Meaning, if you have to ask if Davidoff is expensive, and I'm not saying you could be rich, poor, or middle class, but whatever it is, you can't afford it if you have to ask. And what I mean by that is, you could be very well off, but maybe very smart because you're very frugal, and you got to say, "Oh, why does it cost that much?" Then don't buy it. There are other great brands that have great blends and etc. So what I'm trying to say is Davidoff expensive? You bet your sweet ass. Is it worth it? For me, it's like a hook and jab. I smoked many Davidoff over the years, but I'm never smoking Davidoff on a daily basis. They're very posh. They're very polished cigars. They're not edgy at all. If you're looking for edge jobs, don't go with Davidoff. But my point is, though, they make some really cool brands. Their white labels get overlooked because you have the Nicaraguan on the dark side. You have the Escurio, and then there's been plenty of Maduro versions of past few years and other stuff like that, the stronger variety. But their classic Connecticut stuff is Ecuadorian. The binder, I saw the blend on Davidoff of London. They said the binder is or if it was a hybrid binder or if it was a double binder. I think it might have been a hybrid, but whatever. I think it was talking about some type of Habano at the same time, some type of Dominican Seco. I don't know. Who gives a shit? And I tried to look at the Davidoff website, but it was the Davidoff regular website of Geneva was very busy, and like they were pushing like Camacho cigars, and I was like, I'm not looking through all this bullshit. So this is Anniversario. I believe that's the model, the Entracto. Entracto. Okay, sure. Look, even if you think Davidoffs, let's say, are not worth it, it still should be something maybe you dabble occasionally on a birthday, or you say, fuck it, tonight you're gonna spend $20 and get yourself a Davidoff. And that way you can see what they're about. Even if the profiles aren't for you, you can't argue that these things are very smooth and very polished. And they really have a certain way, the way they blend, and it's very strict on their guidelines on the way they grow and the kinds of seeds they use and etc. And in fact, some people might think it's too strict. The amount of the Davidoff's quality control as far as when they grow stuff. Well, you go watch videos on it, like they really get down like into some insane level that for most people it's not, nobody cares. However, though, if you do care, it's kind of cool to have a brand that is that much into the little details. But for most guys that want medium to full, the full strength dark Nicaraguan cigars with either Pennsylvania or Connecticut broadleaf Maduro wrappers or Mexican San Andreas wrappers, that's not going to be really the brand for you. Without further ado, let's light this up, and the rain just started. Here we go. Off to it, we're a nice medium strength. The cold draw is very nice too. Lots of dry cedar. The cigar gets right to it. Even though it's not a strong cigar per se, the flavor that it represents, and this is why I've smoked, I think, 2 or 3 times in the past few months. Every time I went to cigar, but multiple times when I went to the cigar pub. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed having the size right after having like a dinner you could smoke with there at the bar. And so I, have dinner or something like that, and then light one of these up. I already bought the cigar ahead of time at the shop there. It's very pleasant. It's very smooth. It's not gonna like blow your chocha out, but it's really delicious. I have nothing bad to say about these white label Davidoffs. It's very classy. It's very polished. The notes aren't going to be some kind of extravagant blend. It's a Connecticut, Ecuadorian shade wrapper, but it is really polished. Picture like a Rolls Royce. It's really polished. It's for the average person, you're not going to give a shit or maybe notice. But if you smoked a lot of Connecticut shade cigars of all different price points per se, and then you have something like this, you're like, wow, that's really polished. Now that might mean nothing to you. Wow, the nuttiness, the cedar. What Davidoff does very well is that the blends are generally harmonious. All the flavors work together, and generally, the notes generally don't overtake the other. It has a lot of balance, and not easier said than done. And then the clarity of the notes with Davidoff are so clear. There's no static. There's no harshness, and there better not be at those fucking price points. So, rich cedar, some light black pepper, almost white pepper, nice nuttiness. It feels like a really nice, classy Connecticut shade cigar. Is that for you? For me, it's something that, and I appreciate Gio sending these kind of cigars with the whole white label. I think they're a classy situation. I think once or twice, even if you're smoking mostly lower to mid-tier cigars, once or twice a year, buy yourself one of these in Robusto or Corona, and fuck it, light it up on a Sunday afternoon, and just, have one occasionally. You don't have to have Davidoff all the time, you know. You don't have to have, let's say, a Davidoff lifestyle to enjoy a Davidoff. At the same time, if you're not making Davidoff money, but you're having a Davidoff cigar smoking lifestyle, you probably got a lot of debt. But if you have the outlook, you're not taking your debt to the grave, but you will take those memories in your soul forever, well then, you're already free, my friend. It all depends on what you look at it. I guess it depends on how much faith you have. So, can you enjoy these white label Davidoffs? Absolutely. Should you? That's up to you. I think everyone should, but how often, how frequently, and I mean it. Meaning, if you're in a tight financial situation, you can still enjoy some cigars. But go on Cigar Page and get some nice mid-tier stuff for $3 to $5 a stick. You could afford to do that, So let's just say you spend, $50 to $100 a month. You could have a cigar every day on Cigar Page, which is very reasonable. $5 a day or $3 a day, very reasonable. However, though, the same person going to a cigar shop every day, you're going to be pissing away a lot of money. However, though, what I'm trying to say is, Davidoff, there's no deals. So, to only enjoy Davidoff every day, you kind of disconnected from reality, though. If you only smoke Davidoff, you'll kind of forget why Davidoff is so great. Does that make any sense? Does that make any sense? If you had Scotch, mostly you drink 6 to 12-year-old Scotch, from Johnny Red to Johnny Black. And let's say occasionally you have Johnny Green, Gold, or Blue. Wow. You're going to notice that those more expensive Scotches are fantastic. But if you only drink Johnny Blue, one, you have to be rich or a thief, or in a lot of debt. So you don't have to be rich to smoke Davidoff. You could just occasionally smoke them. And you don't have to be in debt if you can't afford Davidoff every day. You just can occasionally smoke them. So my opinion, for most people, is occasionally having a Davidoff. Once or twice a year. Maybe more, maybe less. But once in a while, enjoy one. It's not necessary. But it's nice seeing cigars on that premium level. And there's a reason why. I mean, They're really refined. Well, for some people, the cigars might be that the cedar note is so fantastic. There are some people, it's like a creamy cedar, like almost like a minty cedar note. Davidoff has some of the best dry cedar notes. It's very nice. For most people, what was I talking about? I'm in a really good mood. What was I talking about? Nice medium strength, 60% darkness, medium length and finish and heaviness. It's a nice ultra premium Connecticut shade cigar. What was I talking about? I don't even remember. Who gives a shit? Should you smoke a Davidoff? You should. You don't have to, though. So just have one once in a while. If you can afford it, great. Remember, just because if you can afford Davidoff, you don't have to smoke them every day. You know, they're not all that. I mean, no, not one brand you could smoke every. You got to switch it up. It's like exercise. You can't just work on, I don't know, whatever the fuck you want to do. You change it up. You can't just work on your legs. You got to work on your arms. You got to work on your back. Some people work out their groin. We're done here. I don't need to smoke this to the nub to explain to you how a small Connecticut shade cigar is going to change the world. But what's interesting about the Davidoff brand is how polished they are. And like I said, are they expensive for what they are? Yes and no. I mean, the little attention to details, I think they're worth it on an occasional basis. Oh, if I'm just going for a drive down, 2 hours to Lancaster, just to go for a scenic ride, I don't have to smoke a $20, $30 Davidoff in the car. I'm not doing that. However, though, occasionally, yeah, I'll buy one. Probably going to be the Davidoff Nicaraguan. Well, anyways, though, I digress. So try a Davidoff here and there. And if you want really some of the most refined, polished cigars, great. If that's not something for you, then don't even waste your time. However, though, for most people, it's good to have one once in a while. It's exactly opposite of Padron. Padron has a lot more power, especially on the white label side. However, though, no Padron is as refined and sophisticated and polished as Davidoff. So, Padron tried to do some Davidoff competition with the Padron Damaso, and really did it terribly. Davidoff wins in the class section. Now, but Padron is a killer on guys like that Nicaraguan power. Things shifted. In fact, things shifted so much over the past, let's say, 15 years. And Davidoff started making black label cigars to go after the Nicaraguan cigars, like the Padron 64, Padron 26 Maduros. So I digress, though. And that regular punch, I keep saying punch, son of a bitch. That regular Davidoff Nicaragua is fantastic. You need to try Davidoff Nicaragua in the smaller sizes. You're going to have a great time. So where do I put this cigar? It's a beautiful cigar. It's an elegant cigar. It's still just a Connecticut shade, which is generally the safest type of wrapper to work with. And generally the blends, they're not going to load them up scary. But really refined. It's a 4.7. Delicious cigar. It's a little banger. It's a great time. And this would be your most affordable option. And this would be, you would get probably the most flavor in this small, short size. You get right to it. Because the length is the distance from the beginning to your mouth. And so the smoke has the least amount of travel in this size. And then the gauge is going to be how watered down it's going to be. Because the more air, the more distance, also the more filler that all the smoke has to go through, it's going to absorb more of the smoke. So the shortest, skinniest size is going to be the least resistance, least distance, least resistance on either avenue. Can't stress it enough. So in Connecticut's, it wouldn't hurt to go with smaller Connecticut's. If they're refined, though. However, if they're not refined, going longer and more bigger gauge will open up the blend and water it down, and that could be a good thing on dirtier, harsher cigars. So in my opinion, it's kind of Kind of like if she's a supermodel, you kind of want to have the lights on. It's refined. You want to see what's going on. And if it's, I don't want to use the word dirty because that sounds nasty. You gotta get that fresh. But if it's less refined, zooming out, got the lights. You get what I'm trying to say? Davidoffs are refined. I would go with the smaller gauges on this white label. Really some of the best cedar notes. Dry cedar notes, not charred wood at all. But I always love Davidoff's classic dry cedar note. Really, I've talked about it for years. If you can't pick it up, then you don't know anything about flavor, that's fine. But if you don't know anything about cigar flavor or understanding it, just admit it. I'm telling you, white label Davidoffs have fantastic dry cedar notes. We're done here. Classic Connecticut. A little bit of bready sourdough coming in now. I don't need to keep reviewing it because I just want to enjoy it. Gio, appreciate it. 4.7, enjoyable, classy. Davidoff Anniversario, Entracto. Just classiness. And that's where Davidoff is a winner.